Hi Diana, thank you so much for taking the time to join us here today for this little interview at the EIC Innovators Summit. First of all, I would like to ask your view on the event. You've been here since yesterday. You took part of the jury in two different pitching sessions. How was that experience and how was the quality of the company's pitching?
Thank you. Yes, I have spent 2 days now meeting, I think, probably more than 20 companies by now. Yes, so good quality on average, huge attendance. Most of the startups I'm in contact with are here, they're present. And quality was I mean, it went from very good companies to a little bit too early companies that are a little bit too early for us. So a little bit mixed in quality, but definitely good networking opportunities, not only with the companies and the entrepreneurs, but also with other funds and investors and people in the ecosystem. So very well done.
You mentioned that many of the startups or the companies you're following are and supporting are here today. Does this mean that these companies have received also financing from the EU? And if so, what's your experience with working with these companies and how relevant do you think the EU funding has been for their development and the maturity of their business?
Well, there's a huge overlap between what we're interested in, especially in medical devices, and what is funded by the EU through the various instruments. So the SME instrument, as well as the loans that are given by the EIB or different forms. So there are several instruments, and the overlap is, I would say, almost 100% in medical device, because there's always an R&D project that is looking for funding and tries to apply into these instruments. And at the same time, the same companies are looking for funding. So with VCs, so the ecosystem, the overlap is totally, and so I mean this is our ecosystem, and here it was good because it was not only a sector dedicated event. There was all the sectors were represented: energy, medtech, life science, as well as digital. And we could, and the entrepreneurs found other peers in other sectors they usually not meet, but for some more than once they could find some stories to share and ideas to share. So it was a very good idea in my opinion.
And your main activity is you're a venture capitalist, so you invest in companies. How do you see the current environment for VC funding in Europe, and how do you see it evolving in the future?
Well, I have been a venture capitalist for 20 years. I went through various different cycles, hypes and difficult times. Sometimes there is too much money on the market, sometimes there is too little. I would say that finally, and this is true since the last 4 or 5 years, I believe, Europe has found a steady, growing venture capital market with the amount of liquidity that is needed for Europe, and it's not in excess. Maybe there's still a little bit of scarcity, but that's not too bad for us as venture funds, because we, of course, have a little bit more of negotiating power. So I shouldn't complain too much. But again, all these instruments coming from the EU are being very helpful in supporting the company, in leveraging the company, and providing the liquidity in moments and times in companies' life where it's maybe more difficult to find money. So I think there's a lot of complementarity, and we are in a very good moment.
And earlier we spoke a little bit about your experience as a jury in the pitching sessions and as an investor. I'm sure there are a couple of questions that you always ask a company to validate if they're worth the money you're investing in them. What would be some of the questions that these companies must be able to answer when they're faced with an investor?
Well, the key question is what is the value your innovation, the invention, or the new product or the new service you want to bring into the market? What is the value? Please quantify the value this is creating. And it's not obvious for most of the companies. Not obvious. It's not an easy calculation, but I think they should spend a little bit of time to try to identify and quantify the value in euro or in dollar, whatever currency they like, but it has to be into a cash currency, not just philosophical.
Are there any other impressions, anything else you would like to share that you've seen in the event that you thought was interesting or that motivate you maybe to come to a next edition?
The attendance, I don't know how many we are, but the attendance is quite huge. So it's good because you can find all your peers and you can catch up with other other investors, the startups you're following. So the bigger the better, probably, for that type of event.
Thank you very much for taking the time to talk to me and enjoy the rest of the summit.